2006 Prius P0A0F. Engine won't start, but it's happening to me after it's been driving for a while. It sits for a while, it'll usually start right up, drive you wherever you want, but somewhere's along the way, red triangle of death and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna dig into it, see if we can figure it out. Suspicious of the fuel pump, either the relay or the pump, I don't know which, but I've got the fuel pump relay manually commanded on. So at this point, I had probably engaged the fuel pump relay manually maybe 200 times. I was sitting in the car for half an hour pushing the button, but the point is, I figured this was likely the cause because this car had 228,000 miles on it, and after doing some research online, it was a pretty possible cause of the issue, but it's not running. Now I got to track down whether or not it's the relay or the pump. So let's figure that out. All right, now that I've got this fuel pump into a failed state, this is the relay module that contains the fuel pump relay. We need to get it out. Get these snaps out of the way. This whole module just pulls right out. Here we go. I've got the meter set to amperage. I've moved my positive terminal over to the 10 amp setting. And if I jumper between 12 volt to the fuel pump. Jumpering these two pins is a great way to manually activate the fuel pump, especially if you don't have a bidirectional scan tool. I'm getting 9.4 amps. That's an awful lot of amperage. I'm pretty sure that fuel pump is stalled and seized. So I'm going to lift the rear seat up. If you grab on the front end of the seat and lift, this thing will come right up. There are snaps underneath in here. This thing pulls off. It's just glued down. Remove these three connectors. In an attempt to verify that the fuel pump itself is the problem and nothing to do with wiring in between the relay and the pump, I've got my power supply connector directly to the leads on the top of the tank, go down into the pump. This is how you want to hook it up, positive and negative into these two terminals here. Let me show you what happens when I turn the power on. Immediately it goes straight up to 5 amps and the pump is stalled. Nothing's happening. So we know definitely the pump in the tank is our problem. This is the point in our adventure where we discovered that in the North American version of the Generation 2 Prius, the fuel pump is permanently embedded inside the fuel tank and is in no way replaceable as a separate component. I called my local Toyota dealer and I was quoted $3,000 for a brand new OEM tank, which did not include installation. Aftermarket tanks seem to have been available in the past, but I had no luck finding one currently available anywhere. So I briefly debated finding a used tank, but in the end, I found some slightly more reasonable prices for OEM tanks in other states and had one shipped to my house. Also, be sure to check the manufacturer date of your car because the tank changed slightly after November 2005. First thing I'm going to do is try and get the fuel filler neck off. Grab this thing, both sides of it, and start pulling back, and it'll just pop right off. It doesn't need to be taken apart. We need to remove this one next. Take this one apart too. Give it a big old squeeze. Quick rundown of all the connectors you gotta undo to get this tank out. Fuel filler neck clip's gotta come off. This one comes undone. This one comes undone. And this one comes undone. Don't forget to undo these two. I got my tank halfway down and I'm trying to get these undone, so I'll be right back with you. The tank has two straps with 4 bolts. They're 14 millimeters. One here. There's one there. And there's one here. And one more right there. The filler neck will be nearly impossible to disconnect without lowering the tank first. The hose is metal and quite stiff. The tank straps are labeled left and right. They are not identical. The exhaust does not need to be disconnected or removed, but a little maneuvering is required to get it around the pipe as the tank is lowered. Now that the tank is out, you'll need to remove all the components from the top of the original tank and transfer them to the new tank. Start by removing the 3 10mm nuts on top of the protective bracket here. Underneath the bracket are 2 lines that need to be disconnected from the tank. Remove the 2 10mm bolts here. Note that the lower bolt is also securing the ground strap. Disconnect this line. Remove the upper 2 10mm nuts and lower 10mm bolt here. There are 2 plastic hose retaining clips. Do not remove the hoses from the clips. Instead, each has a single snap on the left side, allowing it to lift away from the tank as a whole unit. There are 2 more plastic clips holding the wiring harness in place that will also need to be removed. A large rubber grommet is holding each of these 2 assemblies down. Carefully pry upwards to pop them out. You'll need to swap these 2 grommets to the new tank. Use a generous amount of silicone lube when reinstalling. There's a single self-retaining nut that needs to be removed and reinstalled on the new tank. Before reinstalling any of the hoses, be sure to lube the fittings with silicone. Well, at this point, it's time to just put everything back together. reinstall it the same way it came out. It's pretty straightforward, really.
All right, new tank's installed. I've got the power supply hooked up again because I want to prime the fuel system rather than having to crank and prime. So, power on. That's a good sign. The pump's running, I can hear it. Nice. Hey, just like that. It's working. I gotta reset the codes. We'll do that next. Well, I cleared the codes and everything's driving perfect, so hey, it looks like it fixed it.
Oh, one thing though, when I got to the cover under the back seat that covers the plugs, I wasn't sure exactly what to seal with. I used this Permatex Red RTV silicone, kind of squished that thing back down. If you got any other better ideas, let me know in the comments, because I wasn't really sure. But at any rate, hey, thanks for watching. I hope it helps. We'll see you next time.